Good evening and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining the 2021 Ernestine Smith Environmental Awards presentation. I am really thrilled that you're all with us, and as we found with the pandemic that using technology sometimes allows us to have a kind of a broader reach, a different reach of people who are able to join us. So that's pretty wonderful. And I wanted to announce that we're really excited about having an in-person celebration this year as well. And I think as a measure of how well loved all of these awardees tonight are, we have actually hit our capacity for our celebration this Friday at the Sebastopol Grange. So we cannot sell any more tickets. We have completely full up in terms of what we can do, but we are really looking forward to being able to celebrate in person with the awardees and with many of our local community. So, to start off, in case you're not familiar with these awards, I wanted to give a little background. The Sonoma County Conservation Council has been recognizing local environmental achievers and achievements since 1975. For many years, we celebrated awardees at a community dinner, in addition to hosting a holiday networking party. These events were consolidated about 6 years ago, at which time SCCC received a bequest from the estate of Ernestine Smith, who was one of the key environmental leaders of the generation that helped to save Sonoma County from even more rampant development early on. These leaders recognized the priceless value of our natural lands and ecosystems and worked to protect them for future generations. So Ernie asked us to continue the tradition of honoring leaders such as these each year. So the awards dinner and holiday networking party were SCCC's only fundraising events, and we really would appreciate any donations to help support the work that we do in networking the community and the Environmental Center, which is open now and has capacity for hybrid meetings. So since networking is part of our mission, we'd like the attendees to enter your names in chat. And if you are involved with any particular environmental organization, or there's any particular area of environmental work you're particularly interested in, you can just briefly state that too, so we know who's here and we know what you're engaged with. And I'll verbally start with myself. My name is Wendy Krupnick, and I'm on the board. I joined the SCCC board over 20 years ago, partly because I do so much believe in collaboration and networking. And I have, each foot firmly planted in kind of the environmental and agricultural worlds. I am active volunteering with Community Alliance with Family Farmers, with the Native Plant Society, and with the Sonoma County Food System Alliance. So for our awards, last year we celebrated champions of our local forests, and this year we are honoring people who in particular have dedicated their lives to the Russian River and to the coast. So moving along to begin, I'd like to introduce, excuse me, a champion in her own right, Environmentalist of the Year in 2005, Rue Furch. And she's going to introduce the 3 Lifetime Achievement awardees. So if you, for the attendees, any questions or comments that you may have, please put them in chat. And after all of the awardees have spoken, then we will address, have discussion among ourselves and address the questions that are put in chat. So I'm going to turn this over to Rue.
Hello, everyone. I can't begin to tell you how excited I am to have the honor of introducing the 3 Lifetime Achievement Awards for this evening, this year. All 4 of our awardees. Can you not hear me? I heard somebody else's voice. All 4 of our awardees for this year are phenomenal human beings, and it makes me really, really grateful to live in Sonoma County. because without these people who are willing to give of their lives beyond any work that they do, because all of them have been engaged professionally in one way or another in environmental protection. But that is a testament to their commitment. But beyond that, they have exceeded any expectation for any kind of job related thing. So the first person that I'm going to try and in 2 minutes or less say something about is C. Higgins, our dear C. Higgins. She's been a key figure for decades in cleaning up and protecting the Sonoma County coast. For over a decade, she was the policy and volunteer coordinator for the Sonoma Coast Surfrider Foundation, organizing volunteers, cleaning up plastic and other marine debris, and educating about the impact to the coast. Her contributions include marine mammal protection and rescue, establishing a citizen-based ocean water quality testing program, no small feat, and development and implementation of a youth marine debris education program, which carries on for generations the kinds of work that we all need to do. As executive director of Coast Walk, which is also called California Coastal Trail now Association, she's worked statewide on coastal trail completion and coastal access for underrepresented communities. See, I'm trying to talk too fast. She's worked in the Bodega Bay Collaboration, is the coastal liaison for Sonoma County Water Coalition. She's the community at large Sonoma Mendocino member of the Greater Farallones National Marine Sanctuary Advisory Council, and she chaired its sediment management working group. She's won Volunteer of the Year award for that role. She's adept at gathering volunteers and coordinating with state, regional, and regulatory agencies, which I have to emphasize is really, really important to the work we're doing for the local coastal plan now here in Sonoma County. Anytime there is anything going on at the coast, C is engaged wholly. Just recently, there was a spill, and C herself was out there with her wellies on, down her hands and knees, cleaning up oil. No task is too small and no hurdle too large for RC. She's an avid surfer and is currently engaged in advocating for the coast during the local coastal plan update. And it's just an enormous honor and thrill to have C recognized this year. Do you want to say a few words, C?
Wow. Thank you, Rue. That was a wonderful introduction. I did create some slides to sort of help tonight. So I'm going to do a little screen share for everybody attending and bring that up. But so appreciate. And is that on the screen? Yes. Okay, wonderful. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, I'm C. Higgins, and I am so humbled and honored to receive this award and to be in the company of the other award recipients. You know, as Rue mentioned, I am involved in a lot of different organizations. I mean, it is a big coast and there are many impacts. And I just put some logos up here of some of the different organizations I'm involved with, and going to talk a little bit about some of the great work that they do. But a lot of tentacles, and maybe that's why my spirit animal is the octopus, because that's the sentient being, the octopus, because that's what it takes. But I think, you know, to kind of go back a bit to where it all began for me, I think one of the most important things that we can do as coastal conservationists and environmentalists are to be mentors for our next generation of coastal stewards. You know, when I started doing this, I only had two skills, and that was passion and persistence. I didn't really have anything else, you know, and I approached some of the really prominent people, some who are on this call, the person who introduced me, some who are attending, they all know who they are. But one of the first I went to was the father of all grassroots environmentalism on the Sonoma coast and California coast, Bill Cordham. And, I was just so honored to meet him. And, I thought that he was going to give me this like long list of things to do. But instead, his first question to me was, "See, what do you want to do?" And I just said, well, I want people to stop thinking of the ocean as a resource that they can extract from, and instead to think of the ocean as a community that they are a part of and that they have an obligation to steward. And I remember Bill with those, sparkling eyes pointing at me and saying, well, that's what you should do. And, when Bill Cordham tells you to do something, that's what you should do. And just throughout the years, every time I had a question, was there to answer and guide me. And so I've tried to really follow that, by creating these programs with the different organizations that really mentor and, teach our youth and give them those skills to become that next generation of coastal stewards and coastal enthusiasts. And, one of the programs that we really work on is our marine debris education program. And, it's a combination of the NOAA, Surfrider, National Marine Sanctuaries, and my own experience, doing marine debris for 25 plus years, and, really tailored to the Sonoma coast so that we really talk about safety and tide pool etiquette and just behavior on the coast. And it's an interactive program that goes into the schools and does a lot of lessons prior to bringing kids out for a cleanup. And then the follow-up is really about them being a part of the solution, them devising ways, feeling empowered to do things, whether for younger kids, it's about, making their own reusable bag from a t-shirt, or, our high school eco programs that, they're developing these whole campaigns in their schools and their communities about how to reduce marine debris. So it's a wonderful program. And, hopefully we are back in the schools, post some of the COVID concerns. Another way that we really try to build coastal enthusiasm and coastal advocacy is through our whole coastal trail hiking experience, kind of these coast walks that we lead, bringing kids and adults out on the California Coastal Trail. And just to make sure, everybody knows the Coastal Trail is this 1,200-mile coast from Oregon to Mexico, and it's about 63% complete. And the reason why it's so important is because I call it this ribbon of protection along the entire California coast. It's a corridor not just for people, but for wildlife. We have all these areas of protection around it and these organizations that arise around the various sections to protect those sections. So, constantly working on that, but also just trying to really turn people onto that through our coast walks, from rugged coast walks on the Lost Coast, where you're backpacking, to more gentle experiences where we're carrying all your gear and you just have a day pack and you're guided and you're learning all about the coast in that particular area. So that schedule always comes out in February. So look for it. And we've really revised our COVID protocols. So hopefully you become a part of that. Another thing that we're really working on out at the coast is, of course, our local coastal plan. And that is the controlling document, right, for our entire coastline that ensures equitable public access and protection of our critical coastal resources. And if you come out to the Sonoma coast and you really love the way it looks, that we don't have these giant development projects, that's because of our local coastal plan. And if you want to keep seeing it that way, it's in the process of being revised, and there's an opportunity for folks to get involved. And that's kind of what Save the Sonoma Coast has been working on, able to slow the process down, be in front of the Planning Commission. I put that schedule up there on the slide. The next big meeting is the 9th. And Rue, correct me, I believe it's going to be possibly water, cultural and historical experience, and maybe ag. But these are open hearings. So even if you miss one of those meetings on a particular element, you can continue to comment till the end of the process. And you can go to the Planning Commission website and please get involved if you want to keep seeing the coast as protective as it is, because this current revised draft they put out, unfortunately, is deficient in doing that and doesn't protect our coast the way the existing document did. So please get involved. And yes, there are so many impacts here to our coast. We're looking at these, aquaculture call areas. We're looking at offshore wind. I mean, of course, we want to see an alternative to fossil fuels and create a sustainable food source, but we also want to do that the right way, right? And so those are really important issues out there. We also have that continued issue of grounded vessels, and we have, our current, what's happening with our whole kelp forest out on our coast, and all of the loss of our kelp forest, almost 80% of it. There is some good news. We're seeing some recovery, but it's just, this is something that's very dynamic and something we have to be aware of, which is why it is so wonderful that we have the Greater Farallones National Marine Sanctuary here on our coast. I've kind of pulled up a map of the border, and really wanting to thank all of the people that were involved in making sure we got this designation and the expansion. Richard Charter, you're our hero, as many others, to making sure this happened, because this is an amazing protective resource. Off the Sonoma coast, we have the California Current, which is the life source, not only for the whole Eastern Pacific, but beyond that. And so it's something important to protect. We look out and we don't see oil rigs, right? And all of the existing regulations and protections of the sanctuary help ensure that some of those issues that I brought forward are going to be done the right way. And so that is something that the public can engage in those sanctuary council meetings. They are open and public, and they occur quarterly. And you can find out more by going to the National Marine Sanctuary website. But there is a pretty big issue coming up right now, because the last thing that we want to see happen on our Greater Farallones National Marine Sanctuary is this U.S. Fish and Wildlife proposal that is coming up at a December 16th Coastal Commission hearing, of which you can sign up to send in comments, of which you can sign up to speak at that hearing. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife is proposing to drop 1.5 metric tons of a very toxic chemical brodifacoum, which has actually been banned in the state of, on the coastline or mainland area of California because of its bykill. And so what we're trying to do is make sure that they don't use it on the island. I mean, this is a 1950s idea to deal with the mouse population, which we definitely do need to deal with, but there are more saner and alternative methods, but they are dangerously close to getting this approved. So we really would love people to sign up. Poisonfreesanctuary.org has a lot of information. The wonderful Megan Kahn, Safe Ag, Safe Schools, just dropped a drop video. It's 4 minutes long, and it's wonderfully informative in just 4 minutes. And so please, please, please sign up, comment, spread the word. We are going to need a massive public opposition to this to stop this from happening, and appreciate your support on that. And then to end, because it's always good to end on cute and cuddly, one of the other things I really love being involved with is the Marine Mammal Center and being a part of Marine Mammal Rescue. And so this kind of originated, as I was out in the water and I would get bumped off my board and would be so relieved to see the batting eyelashes of a harbor seal or California sea lion, rather than what else could have been bumping me off my board when I was out there. And so just really wanted to become a part of their rescue efforts. So I'm on the stranding team. And the number one thing that you can do, I mean, besides going down and taking a tour of that amazing facility in Sausalito, is if you do see a stranded marine mammal, is to immediately call that number that I have posted there, put that into your, into your phones, and to make sure the best thing you can do is to keep people away and animals away and wait for that team to arrive to respond. We make an assessment, and then if we need to, we bring that marine mammal to the Sausalito Center, where it's rehabilitated, and in 75% of the cases, we get to do the best part of the job, which is re-releasing them to the environment. So that is another way you can get involved, and we're always looking for volunteers there too. So I just really want to thank everyone for listening to me tonight, for getting engaged in coastal issues. you know, I still have the passion and persistence, and maybe now a few more skills. If I can ever be of help to mentor anyone to help you with a project to protect the coast, please feel free to contact me at c@coastwalk.org. Thank you so much, everybody. And I hope I stayed in my time limit.
Thanks, C. Now you all know why we cherish C and how lucky we are to have her, because one of the things that I've noticed in environmental work is what we achieve is often what you don't see. It is very C with SEE as opposed to CEA. When I drive around the county and I look at a thing that isn't there, I know it's because environmental activists prevented something from occurring there. And that's certainly the story of the coast. Michele Luna is our next honoree, and I don't, you know, no one's given more. She spent 27 years at the helm of stewards of the coast and redwoods. She joined when it was the stewards of Slavianka in 1994. Some of you will remember that, as its sole employee. 9 years after the organization was launched, with the grassroots environmental and state park staff coming together to protect Sonoma's coast's natural resources and habitats, and to educate the public with an initial focus on seal and whale populations. In 1995, it was to stage the Concert to Save Armstrong Redwoods, which launched the Armstrong Redwoods project, restoration project. And Michele has been a diligent fundraiser for Armstrong Woods and for all of the projects that she has headed throughout the 27 years. No small task, as you know, because the economy has been all over the map. She's led Stewards of Coast and Redwoods, renamed in 2003, through a remarkable progression, and has ensured ongoing attention to and care for some of the most special natural resources, from the forest to the sea, which we enjoy in Sonoma County at Armstrong Redwoods, State Natural Reserve, Austin Creek, State Recreation Area, and the Sonoma Coast State Park, encompassing 29,331 acres of coast, redwood groves, and parkland, along with their connecting watersheds. And that has been an enormous accomplishment. Michele's extraordinary work at these parks has brought stewards into a lead role in both citizen science, which is incredibly important these days, and docent-led interpretive programs. Their public education programs have touched the lives of more than 120,000 park visitors each year, including 8,000 youth. I'm going to skip about 6 pages of important information here. In May 2013, Stewards, under Michele's leadership, was honored by state parks as a recipient of the DeWitt Award in recognition of their long-term and successful partnership. That's really incredibly important for our nonprofits in our parks, is to develop partnerships that are working and will carry on through successive generations. Her focus is valued by the Stewards staff, volunteers, and community partners, along with Stewards California State Parks colleagues, and has been an important guidepost in the face of recent challenges, including the Wall Bridge fire that burned through 5,000 acres of Austin Creek and Armstrong Woods. Some of us visited Armstrong Woods last month, and the amount of work that it has taken to bring that park back to public accessibility has been phenomenal, and it's all done. It's just amazing. I will leave you with a quote by Terry Bertel, who's the State Park Superintendent for the Sonoma-Mendocino Coast District. He says that under Michele's leadership, Stewards' steadfast partnership and support for California state parks have been critically important for stewardship of our national resources, park operations, environmental education, including during these upending times. Thank you so much for your work, Michele. Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you very much. I'm also going to share my screen with you now. Thanks, Rue. And I really want to start by thanking the Sonoma County Conservation Council for this acknowledgement of my work over the last 27 years. I also want to congratulate my colleague awardees and say that I'm honored to be among you and grateful to have had the opportunity to work with each of you over the years. As Ruth said, Stewards has been in existence since 1985. We promote, restore, and protect your state parks in partnership with California State Parks. Stewards is able to achieve so much because of the dedication of everyone who is intimately involved in our organization, from state park staff who number many, and especially the leadership of Terry Bertles, our current Sonoma-Mendocino Coast District Superintendent, who has always treated me like a colleague, to our amazing board of directors and staff, members, donors, and last but certainly not least, our dedicated volunteers who are the heart and soul of our work, providing over 10,000 hours annually to our various park programs. I'm also pleased to announce that Justin Lindenberg has taken over leadership as Stewards' new ED as I retire in the next few weeks. The state parks we support, as Ruth said, are Armstrong Redwood State Natural Reserve, Austin Creek State Recreation Area, and all of Sonoma Coast from north of Jenner all the way down to Bodega Head, which also includes the Willow Creek watershed. As Rue also said, I started in 1994 with Stewards as its sole employee. And one of the first projects we embarked on with state parks was launching the Armstrong Redwoods Habitat Restoration Project with state parks. And this started with a concert in the historic Redwood Forest Theater with the symphony. And then also we raised the money to remove all the check dams that were in Fife Creek. And we installed lots of symbolic fencing to keep park visitors on the trails, which had not been in place at all in the history of the park. In 2001 to 2011, I had the privilege of working with many partners to launch the Willow Creek Restoration Project. There were many state, federal agencies and nonprofits and private partners that worked together for these 10 years to make this project come to fruition. And Stewards was the fiscal agent for over $1 million in state, federal, and foundation funding to complete all the studies that were needed to get to the point where the project culminated with the installation of the Willow Creek Bridge, which restored fish passage in the watershed. Also in 2006, we were thrilled to be able to reopen the historic Forest Theater for the Old Grove Festival that has been going on ever since, except of course the last 2 years. But I'm really pleased to announce that we are planning for an Old Grove Festival in 2022 on July 16th. So stay tuned. This is an amazing venue to be able to step back in time and be able to see this theater being used. The acoustics are fantastic, and it's really an incredible, magical experience. In 2008, state parks was in dire straits, and they were starting to close state parks. So Stewards was very involved in the Save Our State Parks campaign. We led the effort in Sonoma County with many, many partners to get a measure on the ballot that unfortunately didn't pass, but we worked very hard to get to bring awareness to the fact that our parks are something that we all treasure and they needed to stay open. And this led to, in 2012, Stewards stepping up to be a state park operator for Austin Creek State Recreation Area, which had been closed. And that meant that we were staffing the entrance station for both Armstrong and Austin Creek, and stepped up our stewardship efforts, doing lots of trail work in the backcountry and also in Armstrong Redwoods. And we also reopened Bullfrog Pond Campground, which was a huge accomplishment. And we increased revenue there from $30,000 a year to $90,000 a year, offering an incredible recreational experience to way more visitors than had in the past. In 2012, we also worked with project partners to launch, and we're continuing this. This project goes on until present time, the Pond Farm Restoration and Revitalization Project. This is an amazing cultural site in Austin Creek State Recreation Area, the home, school, and studio of internationally renowned potter Marguerite Wildenhain, who was from the first female master potter to come out of the Bauhaus in Germany. We raised money for the stabilization of the barn in Marguerite's house. We also supported the designation of National Register, getting Pond Farm on the National Register of Historic Places. We started a docent tour guide program. State Parks was able to renovate the guest house to be ADA compliant so that we could start our Otterston residence program. And now we are very pleased and proud of the fact that Pond Farm is being accepted as a National Historic Landmark by the National Park Service. And we raised the money just this year for a new Pond Farm PBS length documentary, which we have started to produce. In 2011 to the present time, we've also produced, and many of the panels that we have produced out on the coast, I designed myself. And they are up and down the coast in different places. They're throughout Armstrong Redwoods, educational interpretive signage. Our newest signs that will be going up will be no drone zone signs. Most of our newest signs are in English and Spanish. And then we also dedicated a wonderful panel that I was really proud to work on to honor our volunteers on the coast. The photo on the panel includes both Lucy and Bill Cordham, as well as many of our trail crew volunteers that have been volunteering for many years. And this panel is at Shell Beach, and it is in English and Spanish as well. In 2013 and 14, we also funded a mobile marine van, which we affectionately call our stewardship. And this van has been amazing interpretive resource for us. We take it to schools, we take it to many special events. It's outfitted inside to show videos and to have lots of interpretive experiences for youth and all the way to adults. And then in 2019, we also were able to fund a new tide pool touch table, which provides an opportunity for the public to get to have an intimate experience with marine intertidal life that we get from the Bodega Bay Marine Lab. And this has also been a really wonderful project for us. And it gives youth who are not able to actually access the intertidal themselves or see these critters in person an opportunity to do so. And then we got to 2020. In 2020, we were first hit with the pandemic, which closed our parks for some lengths of time. And then, of course, on August 17th, 2020, the Walbridge fire started right outside the border of Austin Creek State Recreation Area and ran through almost 5,000 acres of Austin Creek, where it burned pretty hot and destroyed a lot of the facilities in our campground. But by the time we got down to Armstrong Redwoods, we were very fortunate. We didn't lose any buildings or any major facilities. And the fire burned low and slow, which actually ended up being more of a healthy fire for Armstrong. But nonetheless, it has taken us more than 14 months to get that park reopened again. And, this was through the efforts of many, many, many volunteer hours. Our crews, we were able to really increase the numbers of volunteers who worked on fire recovery with us. We processed hundreds of downed trees into firewood that we are now selling on the coast. We rebuilt much of the fencing that had been burned in Armstrong Redwoods. And we did this with adults and an Earth Day project, which brought out about 60 community members who got to come into the park early. And also with our partnership with the Sonoma County Youth Ecology Corps. And this is a group of at-risk youth who are fortunate to be able to work with nonprofits like Stewards. And we've been working with them for more than 10 years on an annual basis to provide job training skills. It's a great career pathway program. We have hired many of these youth to be service aides for us after they worked for us during the summer. And this year we were able to fund 4 weeks of their time, which was fantastic. And then in October, at the end of October 2021, we reopened the valley floor of Armstrong Redwood State Natural Reserve, a park that has been loved by over 800,000 visitors a year. And we're thrilled to have it open again. We still have a ways to go to be able to reopen the upland trails and the backcountry of Austin Creek, as well as the campground. There's still a lot of work to be done, and a lot of that has to do with hazardous trees that are still falling in the upland areas of the parks. Our programs today include docent and community education training and seminars. We support 2 visitor centers at Armstrong Redwoods and Jenner. Our natural and cultural resource public education programs include Seal Watch, Whale Watch, Tide Pool Naturalists. We do guided walks and hikes in our parks. We have the Pond Farm tours and our Artist in Residence program. And then we serve thousands of children a year with our curriculum-based environmental education programs from the forest to the sea. And these include redwood ecology, intertidal exploration, watershed ecology, and marine science. We also do lots of habitat restoration, which I spoke about, including old growth redwoods and watersheds. And our stewardship opportunities are many. We do fuel reduction, and we're working on climate resilience. Trail and restoration crews are out in the parks 3 to 4, sometimes 6 times a month. Our community science monitoring program is very popular, and we do lots of beach cleanups. So again, I just want to thank you all for this incredible honor and invite you to visit our website to get involved in our organization and to get to know Justin Lindenberg, our new executive director. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michele. So, all of you know the treasures we have in our community and what helps us maintain the beauty of the place that we live and protect the environmental assets. It is my great pleasure to introduce as the final Environmentalist of the Year. That's not right. This is the Lifetime Achievement Award. Yeah, that isn't what it says on this piece of paper. So Richard Retecki has spent his life achieving what is well-deserved as the Lifetime Achievement Award. And I can't begin to cover it all because the list is too long and I only have 2 minutes. So you're just going to have to listen to me read really fast. Richard's been engaged since he was 12 years old in 1972. He will laugh here because he probably wasn't 12 in 1972, but if I said how old he was, it would make him sound really old. In 72, he began by developing the forest resource, landscape, and marine resources components of the environmental resource management element for the Sonoma County General Plan, the first one. I'm going to skip all over the place to get through even part of this man's resume. In 77 and 78, he co-authored the work program for the first Sonoma County local coastal plan, and he's still with us. And I think that's critically important that we have that continuity and history that he brings to the table as we begin this next update. Skipping a whole bunch more years, 80 to 83, he represented Sonoma County in opposing the sale of offshore oil leases by the federal government. Millions of acres of oil deposits were mapped in the 80s when Interior Secretary James Watt, some of you will remember that name, and Energy Secretary Donald Hodel pushed for California exploration, and we won so far. We still, as Steve mentioned, we still have the battles to wage. 85 to 2007, he was active in the State Coastal Conservancy for the North Coast and San Diego counties. He served as project manager, and I'm just going to race through these, is Salmon Creek Green School, watershed and hazard management condition signs for the Sonoma County, Salmon Creek Estuary Enhancement Plan, Sonoma County Coastal Trail, Phase 1, Carrington Ranch Initial Public Uses, Willow Creek Acquisitions, Steelhead Beach, River Park. I hope you're getting how broad this man's reach is. Estero Americanos, Ranch Implementation, Willow Creek Interim Operations and Maintenance, Guerneville River Park Access Improvements, Windsor Riverfront Park Access Improvements, and hopefully Don's appreciative of this, Salmon Creek Falls Environmental Center, Russian River Public Access Plan and Trespass Management Plan from 1990 to 2003. This implementation added over 500 acres, which is really critically important in terms of protecting our Russian River access. He worked also with the City of Oakland, East Bay Regional Parks, Port of Oakland. He's worked on the Bodega Bay Trails Plan. He's been active in the State Coastal Conservancy for the, I did that. There we go. Chair, West County Acquisitions Working Group. He secured $180,000 for parcel analysis, leveraging $75 million for coastal and West County acquisitions of 20,000 acres. He's been a board member of Coast Walk California. He's the current board member of Sonoma County Regional Parks Foundation. And he is a founding member of Save the Sonoma Coast Group, which is working and very seriously focused on making sure that we preserve the coast that we know and love here in Sonoma County. And finally, but not the least, is he's a really, really marvelous and dedicated Little League coach. So it's a full spectrum man with a lot of history, and we rely on all these people to make sure that where we live is protected, and we work together in order to make sure that the future is preserved for all the generations to come. Thank you, Richard, for all the years that you've dedicated, and thank you for being with us tonight. Is there something you'd like to say? You have to unmute yourself. I know. I think Richard is on the other coast. Can you unmute yourself, Richard? It's possible. See the little mute microphone in the bottom left corner of your screen? There's a little microphone. It probably has a red line across it. Bless you, Robin. Is there somebody there that can help you find the little microphone?
How's that?
There you go. Excellent. There you go.
I can't see. The dog where I was staying snatched my glasses off the nightstand and chewed them up and dropped them in the flower garden. So I'm here with 3 hours sleep after a long flight from Alabama. And interesting flight. There were two guys on that plane, one sitting across the aisle from me wore a 9XL shirt and the other fellow wore a 7XL shirt, and listen to them talk about where they bought their clothes on the flight coming home. So it's been an interesting night and day. I can't see to read. I bought a pair of glasses here from Rite Aid and they don't work. So I'm just going to wing this. But most of all, I want to thank everybody for this honor, especially Melissa, Kelly, Carol Eber, and yourself and Laura Morgan for considering me for this award and nominating me. Sonoma County Parks Foundation Board for their support. My family and friends, my wife and son for sure, my friend in Alabama, Kitty, Wendy Krupnick, and the SCCC, and the other awardees, Don, Michele, and C. I've worked with them all, actually gave grants to all of them in their organizations when I was at the Coastal Conservancy. So, kudos to all of you, all three of you. I figured out today, I went through the list and that I've worked with 33 out of the 52 Environmentalist of the Year awardees and 15 out of the 25 Lifetime Achievement awardees. The 6th of March will mark my 50th year beginning work for the county. I was a little older than 12 in 72. In fact, I was 29, so I'm moving on here. But I started on the 6th of March with 5 other people at $3.27 an hour to develop the environmental resources management element. There was a whole other group of people working on land use and economics of the general plan. We did 9 different population estimates out to the year 2000, all the way from 380,000 to 630,000. Which I think we came in at about 430 that the board approved in the year 2000. As you all know, or you should know, there were like 5 overriding goals for that. It was diversity of agriculture, which really hasn't held, city-centered growth, community separators, environmental resource protection, and coming up with a funding agency to protect land. And that turned out to be the open space, ag and open space district. For me, myself, the first time I came through the Sonoma coast was in '66, December, doing graduate work in physical geography on the offset of the 1906 San Francisco quake. I was living in Orange County at the time, and it passed through Crystal Springs Reservoir area all the way up through Cape Mendocino. I was with my friend John Hansen, and we were working on a paper together. Immediately after college, moved to California from the Pittsburgh area. I grew up in a steel town. My father was a molder in a foundry for 46 years. So it was a hardworking family, and I worked there so I could go back to school. I don't have things set up, as you can see, like C and Michele did. So I'm just going to go through some of this stuff. If I go over, just turn it off, Moved to Bodega Bay, or moved to Jenner to start a business in Bodega Bay with 2 other Vietnam buddies. We had a 4th friend who has a business on the New Jersey coast called the Viking Marine Biological Supply Business. He wanted to start a West Coast branch, so the 3 of us moved up here, and Bart and I lived in Jenner. I actually had a chance to go into that house where I lived 50 years ago, up at the end of Rock Point Drive in September. It's a gorgeous place with a wonderful view. And I was stuck. I mean, I knew I wasn't going anywhere else. I was going to stay in Sonoma County. I don't know where to go from here. Coastal stuff began in 1975. I was asked to attend the North Central Coast coastal meetings, and then asked to write along with a guy by the name of Paul Fenner, write the work program for the local coastal plan, and then stayed with that till it was adopted in 1981. From 81 to 83, as you said, worked with Richard Charter on separate paths to represent the county against the federal government and the offshore lease process. How I got involved with that is, along with the graduate work, I trained as a diver. I was a deep sea diver, hard hat diver for about 1.5 years and I got drafted after that. But we were successful. You're right, we won, and that was a big fish to land, and that opposition to the federal government. Um, Surprisingly, Supervisor Esposti appointed me to a long-range energy conservation group to do a long-range energy plan for the county out to the year 2000. Whatever happened to that document, I have no idea. At the same time, I was writing grants for the Yakima Indian School, Native American School, and the lease sale process. Um, I don't know what else to say. The West County group, Michele was part of that. Dawn was part of that. The Russian River Public Access Plan, that started in 1991 and went to 2005. It was 5 years of planning with 2 technical advisory groups, one in each county, one in Mendocino, one in Sonoma. The Coastal Conservancy was finally allowed to work in coastal watersheds. And we were in the middle of a recession in the early 90s. So we had to come up with how are we going to do this and where's the land going to be? We didn't have money to purchase any property, so we found 38 publicly owned parcels from Ukiah, actually Lake Mendocino to the mouth, and we evaluated 27 of those. And as you said, I think we're out about 600 acres of new parks. One thing that happened for me in 2015 or 16, we went up to Ukiah with a Little League All-Star team from Sevastopol to play the Fort Bragg team. And I got on the field there and I realized these are the fields that came from the Gobi Street Riverfront Park being developed. So I had goosebumps all over. We ended up winning the game. But it's that kind of direct relationship with the land and having something like that come. You know, one thing for me, as some of you know, I live with being bipolar, and the way my synapses work, the ideas are quick and snappy, but I've also been given a gift of seeing things through to the end. And that came about from all this long range planning. It's really a matter of patience and persistence, as C said, and having a good group of people to work with. We are so fortunate here to have this group of people, more than ourselves, that are involved tonight doing what we do here. I talk about what we do in Alabama and in Pennsylvania, where my family still is, they have no conception that a quarter of a penny per year can generate millions of dollars to protect land. You know, when I started this stuff 50 years ago, I think 1.8% of the county was protected. Now it's 19, close to 20%. And if you want to see what that means, is go get this protected lands map at the Ag and Open Space District, or go on the website and make yourself a copy. It is astounding what you will see, what we've done and what we've protected, which means we can't stop. We constantly have to keep doing this. So as Michele said, as C said, and I'm sure Dawn's going to say, you know, we don't end. It's just what is coming next? How do we deal with it? You know, the West County group that you mentioned was formed in 2001. I was asked to chair that. I came up and met with Ted Elliott, Carol Hart, David Katz, myself, Karen Gear, because the Conservancy was putting millions of dollars into Sonoma County and the grantees weren't talking together. So we formed what was called the West County Acquisitions Working Group, which ended up being West County. And the two simple parcel analysis done by the Sonoma Land Trust. Tom Baginski did the first one, Amy Carroll did the second one, $180,000. Turned out to be almost $80 million worth of money and over 20,000 acres of land at this point. The way we did that, and I used to tell everybody, leave your stuff at the door, bring yourself, bring your goals, let's get this done. And the way we worked was what we just did, what's next, who's going to do it, when are we going to do it, and how are we going to do it? And it just cascaded. Michele knows, she was there working with us. And it just was it was 8-9 years until the other recession hit, and then we had to stop. But you know, I don't know. I don't know what more to say. I'm just thrilled. I'm nervous. You know, when I got nominated, you know, there are two things that all of a sudden hit me. It's like, oh my God, it's like playing my trumpet in front of a crowd, and you know, you're tensed up. But I've been a bundle of nerves since we got this thing started. The other thing was I failed miserably of trying to be humble about it. I've tried to come up with a terrific way to remain humble about all this, and I can't do it. So whatever you're showering my way, I'm going to accept it, and I thank you so much. So that's
We
it.
live in the most marvelous place. I mean, all the places that I've ever lived, I've never had a community that lives and breathes like this one does. And
Exactly.
I think our awardees tonight really make
Yeah.
that point, because every single one has given well beyond any normal level of dedication. And we're really, really fortunate to have you all. I think Rick is up next to introduce Don McEnhill, who also is a treasure beyond words, and we're very lucky to have everybody.
Thank you, Rue. Yeah, I'm actually going to interject a little bit. And wow, I am sure happy that we are honoring the three of you. Those were fantastic presentations. Yes, we're running 20 minutes behind in our program, but I think listening to you all is much more interesting, or is going to have to serve to fill the time we had planned for discussion. So some of the discussion we won't be able to do tonight, but again, I'm thrilled that we got to hear from all of you, and those were wonderful, fascinating presentations. So again, everyone else, please mute yourselves now. If you can, Richard, if you can find that button, sympathize. And congratulations, Sia, Michele, and Richard. So now I would like to introduce one of the 2020 Environmentalists of the Year, Rick Coates, who's the director of Forest Unlimited, and he will introduce the 2021 Environmentalist of the Year, Don McEnhill. So Rick.
Yes, it's my honor to present to you Don McEnhill, the executive director of the Russian Riverkeeper, an organization that's dedicated to maintaining and improving the health of the Russian River since 2001. With Don at the helm, Russian Riverkeeper has championed the protection of the Russian River, which provides water to more than 600,000 citizens. Pretty important. Here's just a few of his accomplishments. He's fought, of course, for the protection of water quality for both humans and wildlife. He's advocated for measures to protect the availability of water, particularly during the drought, and has organized public support for such measures. He's directed river cleanup programs, which removed more than, wait for it, 400,000 pounds of trash from the watershed just last year alone. He's initiated environmental education programs for the youth, our next generation of activists. He's supervised the building and maintaining of the Riverkeeper Stewardship Park in Gardville. He's acted as site manager for the Hansen Project, which will one day be a 350-acre wetland park. And working through the Sonoma County's Watershed Task Force, he's helped residents address erosion issues after the fires by providing free erosion control assessments and advice, supplying erosion control products, and advising on native plant restoration. He has worked to encourage agencies to require real-time water reporting to better coordinate when to release water from the reservoirs and ensure that water rights allocations are not exceeded. He took on the difficult work, and I mean this is probably the most difficult work, of policy advocacy with government agencies working to shift water management regulations so that decisions are based on future climate expectations rather than historic trends. During the drought, he monitored and reported violations of the State Water Resources Control Board's curtailments, aiding in the enforcement of regulations. Thanks to Don's business and science background, he has worked effectively with citizens groups, businesses, property owners, tribes, and government agencies. He understands the importance of working with all the stakeholders. Having grown up by the river, I don't think anyone is more passionate about the river than Don. Please honor Don McEnhill.
Thank you so much, Rick. It's really an honor to be here with C and Michele and Richard, and to be introduced by you, Rick, and to be honored by the Conservation Council. We are blessed to live in one of the places in this country that values conservation so incredibly. It runs in our blood here, and it's just an honor to receive this award. So I'm going to do a little presentation. If you've ever been around me before, you know I love to talk about the river. So I'm going to do a little bit about that and talk about just where we're going here in this Russian River. So I'm going to test my technical prowess and see if I can make this all happen. All right, I think we're almost there. All right, there we go. So our mission at Russian Riverkeeper is to really inspire the community to protect the river ever, because you just aren't going to shake a stick at someone to make that happen. People have to be invested in the river. And some of the people who are most invested in the river, besides myself, are the people who really, I get a lot of recognition as the director, but really I stand on the shoulders of everyone who I work with. I work with 10 incredibly dedicated people. I'm supported by an amazing volunteer board of directors. And over the years, I've worked with just about everyone on this call, and so many people in the community who have pitched in, showed up, and lent their voice to conserving the Russian River. So this really is something that belongs to a lot more people than me, because I'm just one of the village members here. So I grew up spending my summers. I was one of those people like Huck Finn who really had just was blessed with being able to spend my summers at the river. The river's been something that's given me more enjoyment than anything else. And as an adult, I've come to learn just how critical water is, especially in the state of California. It's that thing we can't live more than 3 days without as human beings. But the river really is the heart and soul of our community, as well as one of the most critical resources in our community. And if you don't think it's our most important asset, get ready. Climate change will educate you. So speaking of climate change, everyone on this call is, I'm sure, very aware of what we're facing in the future. And, there's so many different predictions out there, and we've been paying attention to them for the last 10 or 15 years. And really what we're seeing is, we're going to get a lot of water still. We're in longer periods, but the biggest problem is the water is not going to show up where and when we need it. And although we expect more extremely wet years, we'll have a lot more dry years, and we'll have, as the third panel shows, some of these dry to wet whiplash years. Like this year, we had one of the biggest floods in the history of the Russian River on 2019 in February. Less than 18 months later, we were writing letters. My board of directors, president, and I wrote a letter to the Press Democrat, did it close to home, sounding the alarm bell for the drought in June of 2020. And it took almost a full year for the community to respond. And this is something, when I think about climate adaptation in the state of California, it's, we have our issues we need to manage in our forests. Hopefully we'll still have forests, but really water is going to be where climate change hits us the hardest in California. We had our great deluge on the October 20th through the 25th. We got more water than we got in all of 2021 the preceding winter. And looking from here on out at the rest of the winter, we are, as many of you know, facing a La Nina. This outlook for January, December, January, and February, which are the bullseye of our wet months, we're looking at very good odds for below normal precipitation. And when we look at these 3-month rolling forecasts out all the way into next summer, they are looking actually worse. And as this graphic indicates, the above normal precipitation way up in the Pacific Northwest, they are literally drowning in British Columbia right now. They can't leave their towns because all their roads and bridges are washed away, and they're experiencing that extreme wetness that we will hopefully see here again. Just to give you an example, just how bad the situation is, we were sounding the alarm bell when Lake Mendocino in the Upper Russian River was dropping below 70,000 acre feet into June. Right now, we had our great rain, and it's brought us back to right where we were back in September. We literally are facing one of our biggest reservoirs that serves the upper 70 miles of the Russian River going dry this summer. The Potter Valley project, which diverts water from the Eel River. If you haven't been reading the paper, the generator is out. PG&E is surrendering their project. They're not going to replace the generator. Without the generator, they can only bypass a small amount of water. So we really, unless we all pray for a miracle, but we were wishing for a miracle in 2020 and it did not come. And so we are really facing with just a complete change. What we're seeing right here in this graphic, and also the climate predictions for the rest of the winter, is really climate futures they were talking about starting in 2035, and it's 2021. So we do expect the climate change predictions are potentially accelerating beyond what the scientists were telling us just in 2017 and 2018 when that UCLA graphic was produced. Well, I'm an eternal optimist, or I wouldn't survive this job I'm in. Fighting alma mater so many years, just soul crushing, but I just have this ability, especially when I go to the river, to come back and to bounce back. And so we look at this crisis we're facing not with dread, but with really the sense of opportunity. Certainly we see, and we're very aware of human beings can change more than anyone else, any other critter on the planet, but we're also the most stubborn and resistant to change. And we often resist change and hold on to the status quo as long as we can, much to our own peril. But when we're confronted with crisis, we really, really do have an opportunity to change. The good news is we're looking at a lot of different opportunities to a bit more resilient and sustainable place for the Russian River. And one of the simplest things, if you've ever known me, I lived through the 76, 77 drought. I read my neighbors' water meters to make money because there was no lawns to mow. They were all brown and dead. And, I know that conservation works. Only problem is every time we get out of these droughts, we stop conserving. That's got to be a permanent way of life. The reality is our water supply becomes less reliable for the environment, for our communities. We have so much water we can mine, pardon the pun, through conservation. This is just a simple graphic showing some of the opportunities. And the good news is water conservation is the cheapest form of water supply development. There is no way to get more water into our spigots and into our rivers than conservation. So we know here in the Russian River, we have some incredible opportunities from Potter Valley at the top end of the watershed all the way down to the coast. We have opportunities to save water and keep it in our reservoirs, keep it in our river, and protect the environment, and also make sure we can carry on our business in our community. One of the other things, when we have these deluges like we did in October, most of that water ended up in the soil. You think about lakes that people want to keep, dams and reservoirs people want to keep building. They want to take all the water supply development money and plow it into the Sites Reservoir in the Central Valley and build more reservoirs. And with all the concrete we poured and all the rivers we've dammed and destroyed and all the salmon we've lost because of dams, to date in the history of this state, we've only built 50 million acre feet of water storage. And the reality is we have up to potentially 1.3 billion acre feet. I'm way out of my order of magnitude here. Acre feet of water, which literally could supply this state for decades. And all we have to do is slow our rivers down, widen them up, and they will recharge the groundwater. And that is a storage area that doesn't take away land for building affordable housing, doesn't take away farming, and it is not going to get polluted in most cases, and it's not going to evaporate. One of the other big issues with climate change is our atmosphere is becoming much more thirsty. So what water we do have sitting in these reservoirs and ponds is evaporating incredibly fast. This summer, we were watching evaporation go from about 25 acre feet in Lake Mendocino to almost 150 acre feet a day. That was how much water we were losing to evaporation that wasn't going down the river to benefit our communities. So we have some real opportunities to capture these giant monster wet events, which we'll continue to have, and we'll have more of. We'll have things like they're experiencing in British Columbia, and those pose great danger to our communities with disastrous floods that can create havoc. There's no worse disaster. Fires are horrible, but floods are just one of those slow motion disasters that if you've ever been flooded out, I certainly have. It takes a long time to come back from that. And getting water in the ground, flooding our vineyards, flooding our fields, moving that water from the river to preventing it from rushing to the river so fast by slowing it down, spreading it out and sinking it, as good old Brock Dolman told us, is really a strategy not just to protect our communities from floods, but also to really, really store water for these potential decade-long droughts. One of my favorite projects, which Rick touched on, is kind of comes right out of the playbook of Richard Retecki, which is, find these lands along the Russian River. We fought these, we sued Kaiser Sand and Gravel and Hansen. We filed 7 or 8 lawsuits to keep these gravel pits from being dug. And unfortunately, we didn't prevail. We got some great conditions on them and things like that, but they were allowed to go ahead and mine up our watershed. When you look back at some of the oldest photos we have, this used to be part of the river. This was a giant mile-wide meander belt. And we now have the opportunity, thanks to the Hansen Company, now Martin Murrieta out of Georgia, to turn this into something that can really bring us forward in climate change, not just our community, but bring back our historic salmon populations by turning these gravel pits, which pump mercury into our biota, turning it back into a wetland complex that floods every year, this would not just provide food for tens of thousands of baby salmon when at the time of their life cycle, when they just need food to fall in their mouth because they're so small and weak. Our river, having been put into this deep, narrow ditch by the gravel miners, does not produce. I learned what Mutual Omaha's Wild Kingdom as a kid, that food regulates wildlife populations. So if we want more salmon, we got to create more salmon food. This will do that. This will also keep the farmers from taking so much water from our river every summer, because their groundwater wells will be well supplied with water. This could raise groundwater elevations in an event like we got in October by several feet and supply all the irrigation water these farmers need without it coming directly from the river. So this is one of my favorite projects, because certainly as we put the gravel miners out of business, one of our biggest questions was, well, what now? And we went from battling the gravel miners to partnering with them. And one of my good friends now is Jim Sire, believe it or not. He used to send thugs after my predecessor, Marty Griffin, and try and intimidate him. And I literally, the general manager of Sire used to sit in the back of the room. He's a big muscly guy with a bunch of his friends and try and intimidate us not to testify. And now we're working with him to not just restore these projects. We actually needed to get help from Sire. They owned a bunch of land right up here. We needed to get access to make the project work. And Jim Sire was on our land this March and said, yes, I'll give you, you could do whatever you want with our land. So we really come full circle there. And this is just one of those exciting projects that will create something that would add to Richard's legacy. And we are working, of course, with the Coastal Conservancy, where Richard came from and spent so many years at. They're one of our biggest project partners in this. This will create a 360-acre park on the river. Most of it will be dedicated to wildlife, but there will be active uses. We'll have a canoe and kayak portage area where you can get to the river. There's going to be boat-in camping. It's going to be a real exciting thing. And it's going to protect us from climate change. So I will wind it up with my favorite quote. And it's really a telling quote. And I've had this on my emails for, over 10 years since I found it on someone else's email. And it's really telling, because, this is what we've got to end this crazy cycle of going from these droughts and conserving water, and then turning around and putting our lawns back in and using more and more water, draining our reservoirs. We really, really got to remember the dry years when it's wet. And just like the squirrels storing their acorns, we need to really treat water as it's precious. When we use it, we need to make sure we're using as little as we can and keeping as much as we can in the river, in the ground, and in what lakes we do have, so that it's available both for us and the environment in the future. And with that, I think I'm speaking to the choir in all this, but we need to convince all our neighbors and people in our community, our fellow community members, that this is the way of life that we have to pursue. And right now, our biggest efforts are with the grape growers, trying to get them to change. A lot of them look at us and go, why should I bother turning on my pump in the winter? It works all summer long. And so we're really trying to create a paradigm shift with the help of some of the grape growers on our board, like Paul Dolan. So I'll leave it at that. And again, thank you so much for the honor. Really appreciate recognition for all the work our team does at Russian Riverkeeper.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you, Dawn, and congratulations. And thank you, Rick, for that lovely introduction as well. Those were such inspiring and informative presentations, and it did use up most of the time that we had allocated for discussion. But I would like to just take a few minutes, maybe 5 minutes, to open it up to the awardees, if any of you have any burning questions or comments of each other, we'd particularly be interested in hearing that. So you can unmute yourself if you were one of the awardees and just jump in.
Wendy?
Yeah.
Hey, it's Richard. You know, one thing I failed to say is that the environmental community here and the public in general really needs to get behind Coast Walk and keep them solvent. And so whatever time, money we can come up with to fund them so that C really has the outreach that she needs and can really work with. Coast Walk needs some help from us. And, you know, many years, Richard Nichols was director, Una Glass was the director, now C is. So this is decades worth of work. I was fortunate enough to be on the board when Bill Cordham was on that board in the 2000s, but we need to make an overall effort countywide to really support Coast Walk and what they do from Oregon to Mexico to really promote this, you know, the coastal trail, and in particular, the 55 or 60 miles of coastal trail in this county. Jenner Headlands has since 2009 in their initial management plan said they were going to build 2.5 miles of coastal trail. They haven't. Carrington Ranch is coming online as a park in the next couple of years. There's 2 miles of coastal trail available there. So we really need to get behind and push them not only financially, but as much emotional and, you know, hands-on support as we can give Coast Walk. So I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. Yeah, we have, you know, the tough part is that we have so many really important organizations that all need support.
I agree.
So who else? Comments, questions?
I first of all, thank you, Richard, for that, because, you know, I think people sometimes confuse Coast Walk like it's a hiking group.
Yeah.
And it's so much more than that, because as I talked about, it's this ribbon of protection for Sonoma County and the entire California coast. But I think Richard and Wendy, you raised an important point, is how we all support each other. I think sometimes we're kind of put into this situation where there's some kind of competition between nonprofits, and we are so much stronger when we support each other and our mission and our work, because we are all dedicated to the same thing, which is preservation of our coastal lands, our inland areas, our waterways. And so I am just grateful for everyone's work and anything I can do, the coalitions that I'm a part of, you know, the statewide aquaculture coalitions, the wind farm, you know, coalitions, all the different coalitions. I find we are stronger when we are together. And so, yes, thank you for anyone who supports Coast Walk and the Coastal Trail. And thank you to everyone who supports all the various organizations, because we are all trying, you know, to do the work that is necessary to make sure that we can survive this and preserve this for future generations, and especially as we look at the impacts from climate change.
Any other comments from an awardee? Well, Oona, what do we have in chat? Any comments or questions in chat that should be for our awardees?
Well, there's a lot of beautiful congratulations coming in for all of our amazing awardees. So if you haven't had a chance to look at the chat, it'll just lift you up. We don't have any questions of anyone as of yet, but there are, you know, some notices of the local groundwater sustainability forums coming up. So those are really wonderful and important to go to learn about what's happening with the groundwater management plans. Let's see, we have here. Lots of incredible thank yous from all sorts of people who are attendees and also fellow environmental heroes of mine. So Marcia Dupriest asks if there's a PR news release going out about all these fabulous awardees and all their fine work.
Yeah, we did send out a press release, probably 6 weeks ago. So, that's up to whatever press picked it up, but we could certainly, if anybody would like a copy of that, would like to broadcast it themselves, contact me or any of us. I should have introduced Oona. Oona is one of the newest board member of the Conservation Council, and actually has a little office in the Environmental Center. And she's with Conservation Works, another wonderful organization. This recording, this presentation this evening is being recorded and will be posted on our website, which is envirocentersoco.org. And Suzanne is also in the process of updating our website, and the recording from last year's environmental awards, as well as some wonderful photos of previous awards, will all be on our website as well. So certainly we would be very happy for people to continue to spread the acknowledgement of these amazing people, both because they do need and deserve their work to be recognized, but also because it is so inspirational. I think when we see what is possible, it encourages each of us to step up and do a little bit more for our local community. So since we're almost out of time, Dawn has very graciously agreed to read a poem to help us close this evening. And just before I let Dawn do that, just a couple more brief announcements. If you didn't hear at the beginning, again, thanks to this incredible support for these amazing people in our community, we have hit capacity for our holiday party and awardee celebration on Friday. We cannot, I'm sorry, sell any more tickets because we're full. However, I am quite sure that there will be other opportunities to join together in person so that we can, talk to each other and celebrate these great folks in our community. And because we are not able to accept more people, we certainly can accept donations to the Conservation Council, again, through that same website. So we appreciate even any modest donation, given all of these great organizations that need to be supported. Any donation will help support this very small but very long-lived organization that has been recognizing these environmental leaders, like I said, since 1975. So Dawn, please, thank you for being here and for sharing a poem with us.
You're welcome. And this is a poem by Heidi Sands called The River and I. Of course, it's about a river. I move with the river. It moves with me. We move in synchronicity. My thoughts flow with the currents, push my feelings around the bends. It heals my wounds. It hurts, it mends. It washes away worries and doubts. In motion, it turns it all inside out. As peace consumes me all about, no hurdles, no rocks are in the way. I move by and beyond them every day, taking in everything passing by, the river and I.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you,
very
Dawn.
beautiful, great choice. So thank you, Dawn. Thank you all. And everyone, take care. Oh, and as Rue says, I love, let's keep dancing for rain. Moderate, gentle rain. Good night.